Hi, I'm Dom, and this is Jim, and we are here with the Google Nest Mini and the Amazon Echo Dot with clock. And we wanted to set these two sort of entry-level smart speakers side by side, head to head, see which one is better, which one makes the better entry point for the respective Google and Amazon smart home ecosystems. And with that, talk a little bit about those two systems and maybe which one you're better off buying into if you're kind of new to all this smart home stuff. Cool. So, Jim, what have you got there?
So this is the new Echo Dot with clock, and it's basically an Echo Dot 3, but with a clock. So there's a display. Hopefully you can see that on the front. And it makes it a much better product if you're going to put it on your nightstand, your bedside table. Without a clock on there, you can't see the time. So One of the things that people always ask Alexa is, what's the time? And so it makes sense to have that display on there.
Yep. And then this is the Google Nest Mini, which is the follow-up to the Google Home Mini. If that sounds confusing, Google's basically decided to slowly rebrand all of its Google Home products into Google Nest. So you'll see a bit of a mix on the market right now. Some things are Home, some things are Nest, some things have changed name. The Google Home Hub became a Google Nest Hub. This is basically a Google Home Mini 2. Very similar to the first Home Mini though. And so this is at £49 or $49 US. The regular Echo Dot 3 is the exact same price. And our clock model here is $10 more.
$10 more, yeah. So you get your display, and that's the only difference. It's $10.
$10 just to get that little screen, which makes sense.
Yeah.
So price-wise, they're really similar, other than paying an extra $10 if you want the clock model. But you can, sort of $50 versus $50 for the two sort of entry-level speakers. And it's worth noting as well, they are always less than that. I mean, because there's a kind of, especially the Nest Mini is brand new, so it's still around 50. But Black Friday, it's definitely going to drop. The original Home Mini spent a lot of its time at $35, $40. The Echo Dot is often around the $30, $35 mark.
Yeah, bargain.
So, generally speaking, don't buy them at full price. Wait for them to drop because they 100% will.
For sure.
So, what is the difference between them? I mean, as we look side by side, they are pretty similar things. They're about the same size. The Google Clock's in a little bit smaller. It's just a little bit shorter, but there's not a lot in it. They're both things that will happily sit on a bedside table, tucked on the top of some shelves in your living room, sitting on a little shelf or like cabinet in a hallway, anything like that.
Exactly. Yeah, they'll pretty much go anywhere that you need them to, as long as they've got that power socket nearby.
Yeah, that's one thing. They're not battery powered, so you can see we've got our trailing power cables. You do need them to be plugged in all the time. One little edge actually the Nest Mini has now, which I don't think the Dot has, but correct me if I'm wrong, is with the Nest Mini, Google has introduced a little wall mounting bit on the bottom, which is very simple. It's just an indentation, so that if you put a nail in the wall, you can hang it on the nail. That's all it comes down to. But
with the Echo Dot, you'll often find for sale on Amazon third-party mounts, which allow you to sort of sit it on, either on the wall or directly on a socket. It's interesting, actually. I will mention at this point that Amazon has kind of addressed that by releasing an entirely new model called the Echo Flex, which is even cheaper, and that will plug directly into a socket.
Just sits in the socket, right?
So, but this is not really meant for wall mounting. It's meant for a shelf.
Right, other than that, they both have this kind of fabric-y finish. With Google, it goes all over the top. On the Amazon, it just runs around the side, and instead it's a kind of plasticky, silicone-y top. I don't know exactly what it is.
Yeah, it's just plastic. It's just plastic, but it feels nice and smooth, and you got your buttons on there. So we'll just show the camera. You've got your standard 4 buttons. You've got volume. We've got the mics muted because we don't want the assistants piping up.
Which is why there's the red ring all the way around it. That wouldn't normally be there.
So that's it. Yeah, very simple. 4 microphones, 4 far-field microphones that will pick up your voice from across the room, even when there's music playing.
And what's that?
The select button is so that you can actually sort of talk to Alexa, invoke Alexa without saying Alexa. If loud music was playing, you can just press it and she'll automatically listen to you.
Cool. So you'll note then the Nest Mini is comparatively button free. There's not a lot going on there. There is one physical switch, which is here, which is the microphone mute. As with the Alexa, we've got it muted right now. And then there's little side LEDs for the volume controls.
Yeah, it's a smoother look, isn't it? I think this is slightly more practical because you can actually just see them. If you want the more
Yeah, I think
minimal look, then
this looks nicer, but there's maybe a user friendliness
exactly. That's what I'm trying to
the
say.
Echo has. Basically, you know exactly where you're going. You're not stumbling out in the dark. The Nest Mini now has a thing where if you sort of wave your hand over it, it sort of half works, but it should light up the volume LEDs so you can see them. But it's not doing it right now. I found it a bit.
It's just showing those red LEDs showing that the mic is muted, right? And the other feature, which is brand new on this, is that you can, because it's an alarm clock, you can just tap the top to snooze an alarm,
nice.
and that'll give you an extra 9 minutes. But because it uses the mics to hear when you've hit it, it means that if the mics are muted, that feature doesn't work.
So it's not actually touch sensitive.
It's not touch sensitive. It's using the mics.
I like that's quite clever. There's other than that, physically speaking, in terms of the controls you get, they're pretty similar. There's one thing that I can see from here that you guys can't, that the Echo Dot has that the Nest Mini doesn't, which is an aux out port.
Yeah.
So you can do
Let's see if we can just turn it around.
Yeah, so there's a little port at the back. There is no comparable port on the Nest Mini. All that means is if you want to plug the Echo Dot into another speaker for music, you can do. Both of them will do that over Bluetooth. Both of them will also do it over sort of Wi-Fi to speakers with like other speakers within their smart speaker ecosystem. You can do sort of speaker groups and stuff like
That's
that
right.
if you own multiple products.
So you can do multi-room playback on both systems. So if you wanted to play music from whichever service you're streaming it from, you would be able to play that in sync on the different devices, but they both support that.
Yeah. And then the only other physical difference, two other physical differences I can think of between these two in terms of hardware, really. One you kind of mentioned already, Jim. You said that the Dot has 4 mics in it for listening to your voice.
Yeah.
The Nest Mini only has 3, and in fact, the Home Mini only had 2. So in theory, the Echo Dot might be a little bit better about picking your voice up as you're sort of in an odd bit of the room, a bit further away, around a corner, other noise in the room, that sort of thing. I've generally found actually the Nest Mini has been very good for that, so I wouldn't worry about that too much. If you know your house is really noisy, or if you know you've got a spot where you like to stand in the kitchen and shout round the corner to the smart speaker, that might be an edge for the Echo Dot. And the other small thing is the Nest Mini now has a machine learning chip inside. So it's doing a lot of the language processing on device rather than in the cloud. There's a couple things there. One, it means it's a little bit faster. 2, if you're privacy conscious, I mean, these probably aren't the right products for you if you're super privacy conscious. But if you are, it means that the language processing is being done on device rather than sent up into the cloud now. So the clips of your voice aren't. But I still think they get sent to Google anyway, so I don't think it makes a huge difference.
How far does that
not being
extend?
processed in the same way.
What commands can you actually ask this where it won't send it out to Google?
I think the difference is that it will always process your language offline.
Okay.
It figures out what you're saying offline. But obviously, if you're asking about the time or the weather or for what something is, anything it needs to check the internet to get the answer for, it's just to check the internet to do that.
Go out.
But it figures out what you mean on device.
Right. Well, that's pretty impressive for $49.99.
Yeah.
I suppose we should talk very briefly about sound quality.
Yes.
Obviously, we can't play them to you because you'll just be hearing them through our microphones. So that doesn't really tell you about how good they sound. But it is. I can tell you that the Echo Dot is very good. If you want to listen to music and you're not too demanding, you're not an audiophile, then you're going to be pretty happy listening to music streaming through this. Podcasts, radio.
Yeah.
It sounds pretty good for the size.
And I'd say it's the same with the Nest Mini. I think that wasn't the case for the original Home Mini. It was pretty lackluster from an audio perspective. The Home Mini is much better. So the Nest Mini, the new model that we got here, is much better. Again, it's not for an audiophile. It's not going to fill a large bedroom. And if you have other speakers in the house, you're probably going to prefer to hook it up to them over Bluetooth or Wi-Fi or whatever. But if it's for a small room, or if you're someone who's just not really that fussy on audio quality, it will do the job. It's more than loud enough. And it sounds fine. There's not a lot of bass, understandably. They're small products, but they sound okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, in a way that's unhelpful advice because basically there's not much to choose from between them. I think if you know you want a wired audio out, that's a good reason to go with an Echo Dot.
Or a clock.
Or the Echo Dot with clock. And if you know you prefer those physical buttons, that's an edge there.
Yeah.
I think aesthetically it's going to be preference. I prefer the way the Nest looks.
Because this comes in different colours?
Yeah, you get they've got silly names, but they basically boil down to sort of white, light grey thing, a very dark grey, almost black, this orangey, pinky coral, and then a light blue that's called sky. And again, so it's sort of all in that finish.
Interestingly enough, with the Echo Dot with clock, there is but one choice at the moment. This is
Just
the
the white.
only colour it comes in. If you go for the Echo Dot 3 with no clock, then you do have a choice of 3 colours. This kind of, I think it's called sandstone, and it is basically white.
White and grey.
And there's also the charcoal one, which is basically grey.
Yeah.
And there's no real adventurous colours like that one. But to be honest, I think it's just going to sit fairly unobtrusively on your shelf or on your table. So
They're both designed to be tucked away. So it's just which one you think will look nicer tucked away in whatever corner of your room you want to do it. So in a way then, the actual decision isn't which of these to buy, it's which ecosystem you want to be part of. Do you want to buy into Google or into Amazon? So we're going to break that down a little bit and just quickly run through the pros and cons of the different sides of it and what you're looking at. So first up is the rest of the product range. On Google, that's fairly simple. There actually aren't that many Nest or Home devices. There's a larger Google Home speaker and a Google Home Max that's even bigger and louder. And then there's the Nest Hub and the Nest Hub Max, which are both smart displays. They've got the same voice assistant, but they also have a touchscreen, which you can use to watch YouTube, see sort of step-by-step recipe instructions, stuff like that. There's then also the Nest thermostat stuff, though it doesn't actually have the voice assistant built in. So the branding-wise, it's confusing. I'm confident there's going to be a Nest thermostat with the Google Assistant built in before long, but not yet. But Jim, the Echo range is a bit more expansive.
well, I almost need like a big cheat sheet here because
Yeah, I
there
got the
are
easy one this time.
so many different models. However, obviously you can go and look at Amazon's website to see the whole range in its glory, but it goes right from that $24.99 Echo Flex, which
Yep.
is the one that plugs straight into the wall, through to the Echo Dot, then the Echo Dot with clock, then you've got the regular Echo,
Yep.
Echo 3 now,
Yep.
which is basically last year's Echo Plus with
Yep.
but without the built-in Zigbee hub, so
Yep.
you don't have the smart hub. Then you've got the Echo Plus.
Yep.
But alongside this, you've got the Echo Shows. So you've got
And the Echo Studio
Oh,
coming.
and the Echo Studio. So
Yeah.
the Echo Studio is their, I suppose it's the closest rival is the
Home Max.
The Home Max. You've also got the ones with screens. So you've got 3 sizes of Echo Show to choose from, right
Yep.
from the 5.5 inch, which is good for your bedside table,
Yep.
sort of a bit like an alternative to this, and not very much more money. Then you've got the 8-inch one, which is the latest one, and then you've got the 10-inch one.
Yep.
And the audio quality improves as you go up in screen
As you
size.
get more screen. Yeah.
So yeah,
And then you get thrown into like Amazon just has a huge range of other Echo stuff. You can get an like Echo microwave. You can get an Echo wall clock, and you can get all sorts. And it's only going to keep expanding. I mean, at their September event, they unveiled so many Echo fueled products.
and if we're to believe that they're going to actually make it, then there's a Ring with Alexa built
Yes.
in, smart glasses.
Yep.
The range is enormous. So if you're considering which system to go for, certainly in terms of breadth of choice,
Yep.
Amazon has
Amazon has it there. There's a lot more products to opt into. Though other note to note on that is that there's also more partnerships with other companies. So you can look outside of the existing product ranges and actually say, when we talk about Google only having 2 sizes of smart display, that's true, but there's also the Lenovo smart display and the Lenovo smart clock. So that's another 3 sizes, and they just run Google Assistant. And then there are lots of smart speakers now that come with either Alexa or Google Assistant, or sometimes both built in. So you should look to other audio manufacturers, especially it's more prominent on the speaker front. You don't have to buy the first-party one to get a speaker that has the voice assistant built in.
It is also worth bearing in mind that you don't always get exactly the same
No.
features. So one of the things I've noticed, particularly with devices that have Alexa built in, is that they may not necessarily be able to be joined as part of the multi-room audio.
That's the big. I have a Sonos that runs the Google Assistant, but you can't form a speaker group between the Sonos and the main Google Home speakers.
So you've got to watch out for little catches like that when you go for those third-party devices.
You can't be guaranteed the exact same experience. And I would say, to be fair, Amazon also has a little edge there in terms of those partnerships, because things like, you look at Sonos, right now Sonos supports both Alexa and Google Assistant, but it got the Alexa support about 6 months earlier, something like that, even though they were announced at the same time. And I think that's what we'll see. I mean, we might as well talk now about the rest of the sort of compatible smart home stuff, but both companies have been very aggressive in forming partnerships with other companies to build Alexa and Google Assistant support right into smart home products. And they're almost neck and neck, but I think maybe there's just a few more out there with Alexa, or maybe more of them put Alexa in first and Google in second, that kind of thing.
That does seem to be the case. And the way that Amazon has done it with Alexa is by skills. So developers can choose to build their own compatibility with Alexa, if you like.
Yep.
And so that means that they can often do it quicker.
Yep.
I'm not exactly sure how it works with Google, but I've certainly found that there seems to be a bigger range of products that are compatible with Alexa. And even if it isn't bigger, you tend to find that compatibility first.
There are also more sort of Alexa skills you can get that aren't tied to products.
Yeah.
You can sort of add new functionality onto Alexa and sort of say lots of media companies and news services using Alexa to do special broadcasts and things like that you just don't get with the Google Assistant experience, where it's really much more product-led. They have a lot of partnerships with smart home companies, so you can link up your robot vacuum, you can link up your smart light bulbs, you can link up your almost anything else, pretty much, your kettle or whatever. But that kind of having other companies having other things you can add to your smart assistant that aren't tied to a thing you bought. Amazon wins.
With Alexa and the skills, you can enable games, you can play games on Alexa,
Yep.
A lot of different things. And yeah, because they're effectively like little apps, the quality does vary. They're not Amazon's own, so you might try some. They're pretty much all free, although some of them now do have in-skill purchasing.
Yep.
So you've got to watch out for that. But because most of them are free, you can try them out. If you don't like them, just disable them again.
So that's probably a good chance to actually talk about the assistants in general, how they compare, because that's going to be your main port sort of all the way through. Is basically you're talking to either the Google Assistant or to Alexa. So is there any difference between them?
There is a difference between them, and the main difference is that Google Assistant ties into all of Google services.
Yeah.
So it can be better when you ask her certain things. With Alexa, she's not as good at general knowledge.
Okay.
She can answer questions which are effectively kind of Wikipedia pages.
Yep.
And she's pretty hot on local opening and closing times.
Yep.
But you'll be a little bit frustrated sometimes when you think, oh, I could just ask Alexa this, and she just says, I don't know that.
Yep.
I can't help you. But she'll convert centimetres into inches and all sorts of other things for you.
Yeah, whereas Google has the edge of being tied into the Google search engine, into all of the data that's in Google Maps, stuff like that. So there are sometimes Google at the edge. I think also that also ties into like part of why I personally use Google. I actually had an Echo Dot, I think the second gen Echo Dot, and I switched to the Google Home stuff just because it ties into all the Google apps better. I use Gmail, I use Google Calendar, I use Google Music, and having the Google Assistant just links all those things together really seamlessly. So Google has that software ecosystem that's a big edge, and there's nothing comparable for Amazon. No one's using Amazon Email. There is Amazon Music, but most people aren't using it, or if they do, it's only because it's what comes with the Echo. So there's not quite the same sense of it tying into all the rest of your digital life seamlessly.
So on that last point, I'd actually slightly disagree about Amazon Music, because Amazon Music comes as part of Amazon Prime. So as part of your Prime subscription,
that's true,
you get Amazon Music. So it's kind of like if you like Prime and you love getting your Amazon stuff delivered quickly, then you could consider that the Amazon Music comes free on top of that.
Yep.
And while it isn't the same as the Amazon Music Unlimited subscription, which is the full 40 or 50 million tracks, it's still a good subset. And it's certainly, I think, one of the things that people use these type of devices for most is listening to music. And people love just being able to say, Alexa, play whatever music they want to listen to. So music is definitely a big part of it.
Yeah, for sure, it's super important, and that is literally the reason I switched to Google. Was I use Google Play Music. I needed a smart speaker that would do it. Like the Echo Dot will not play off Google Play Music. The Google Dot, the Home Mini and now Nest Mini will, and that was a massive deal breaker for me.
Yep.
With YouTube Music, I am expecting that to be the exact same. They do both support Spotify though, which I appreciate is probably how most people are listening to their music if they're streaming. So if you're on Spotify, it's kind of platform ambivalent. They're both totally friendly with Spotify. Yeah. So.
the Echo will also play Apple Music.
Yes, true. I actually don't know if the Google does.
I don't believe that the Google Home Mini or any Google Homes support Apple Music. And if you happen to be a kind of split between Apple and Alexa devices, Echo devices, then
It's a friendlier fit with all the Siri stuff then.
Exactly.
Yeah. So obviously music is what you're trying to hear, but then there's also things like video content that you've got to think about, because if you're going to go into one of these ecosystems, you then may eventually want something with a screen on it, and you may want to be able to watch stuff on that. So that's the last sort of bit of the subscription service puzzle to really think about, is where you sit in that space, which is things like, well, if you already have Amazon Prime, so you watch lots through Amazon Prime and use that for your TV, then maybe it makes more sense to go into Echo, because then when you get an Echo show, it will play nicely with that. On the other hand, YouTube is the big sort of edge that Google has, because if there's one thing you can be guaranteed, it's that any Google product will always happily play YouTube as long as it's got a screen. It has been very up and down for Amazon.
It has. And confusingly, even though YouTube is now back on Fire TV, it is not on
the show.
Echo Show.
Yeah.
So you can watch it in a kind of a very convoluted way by using the web browser.
Yeah,
and
it's not worth it.
I mean, you cannot compare it with the convenience of it on the Nest Hub.
So that is a big edge, especially because I think for those small displays, you're not really going to watch TV on them, except maybe, I don't know, putting a soap opera on while you cook or something like that. But for YouTube, that's a big thing. Being able to look up recipe videos, being able to watch music videos while you cook, or just like on your bedside table or whatever, that's a big use case for those displays, and Google has a massive edge there. Yeah. So if you think that's something you might want to do in the future, that's maybe a reason to go down the Google path, because it's always going to be better for that, basically.
I think the point we're trying to make is simply that you do have to think a little bit beyond the devices themselves. Yeah. So this is, as we said, the entry point into the ranges. But once you've decided on which sort of range you're going to pick, then you have to stick with that range. You can't really mix and match.
It's quite expensive to go back. Yeah, trying to do both is a nightmare. You've got to be one or the other.
And of course it does, like Dom said, depend on the services you currently use, and which is a better fit for everything you use. Do you already subscribe to Amazon Prime? Are you going to keep subscribing for the next few years?
Yeah.
And do you keep, are you more of a Netflix guy, or do you have Amazon Prime Video? So, yeah, absolutely.
And so it's a mess. But I think it is one of the upshots of that is they're both very good. You'll probably be pretty happy whichever one you go for, as long as you make sure those big services you love, whether that's Amazon Prime TV, whether that's YouTube, whether that's Google Play Music or Amazon Music or Apple Music, then make sure you get the thing that supports those big services you use, you can't live without. The rest of it will all fall into place, and you'd be happy with either platform, I think.
So if you want an answer to the question, which one is better from these two devices, then actually it's a much bigger question.
Yeah.
That they're both basically as good as each other, but you have to think beyond that into the services, as we've said. So
But if you ask me, it's the Nest.
I'm an Alexa guy.
All right, like and subscribe, hit the notification bell to make sure you see all the latest videos from us, and thanks for watching. Let us know in the comments if you've got any questions.